In the previous episode, we confronted a formidable threat from the western dunes of Libya that employed a wonder weapon, but we managed to convert the stone thrower crew and led a rebellion with both regular troops and peasants. We drove them out and defended our capital, which will serve as a launching base for our upcoming expansions. Welcome to another episode of Ascent of Egypt, the river outpost. We are in the Fourth Cataract, 1878 to 1860 before Christ. Objectives: we need to find the island and build on it, locate the island on the Nile River and build a town center on the island, and build 2 sentry towers on the island in the marked area. For centuries, the Nubians of the south have attacked and pillaged our cities in Upper Egypt. Pharaoh Sunrostern III is determined to deal with them for good. His plan is to subdue Lower Nubia by building forts along the Nile River all the way to the Fourth Cataract. To the south of your position, there is an island on the Nile, which would be an ideal location for such a fort. Explore the island, clear it of enemies, and build a town center and 2 sentry towers there. But remember to be wary of Nubian raiders coming down the river. Here are some hints. There are towers on the island that you must destroy before you can start constructing there. To eliminate the towers, build warships or create a small band of infantry units such as axemen and transport them to the island to take them down. In order to be able to build a second town center, you must be in the Bronze Age and have a government center. You will need to build a transport to carry villagers to the island to build a town center. You should take several villages because the island is inhabited by hungry lions and crocodiles, which will attack you and your villagers on sight. When the island is free from predators, you can build a town center and begin gathering the stone you need to build the 2 sentry towers. Here's some historical information. Following the first intermediate period, Prince Mentuhotep II from 2061 to 2010 before Christ of the 11th dynasty built on the successes of his predecessors and reunited Egypt by defeating the rulers of Heracleopolis in Lower Egypt. This ushered in a new period in Egyptian history called the Middle Kingdom. Mentuhotep II made Thebes the capital of the kingdom and is sometimes referred to as the Second Menes. In remembrance of the first ruler of the Old Kingdom, identified as Nam, who united Egypt centuries before. Egyptian society has changed drastically since the Old Kingdom, despite the attempts by Middle Kingdom pharaohs to emulate their predecessors from the previous era. Local officials had much more power and wealth, and it had become easier for them to rise in rank. These differences are apparent in Egyptian art of the period. Pharaohs were no longer the only ones commissioning art, as local rulers and upper class could do so as well, resulting in greater variety and diversity of artwork. Conflict with Egypt's southern neighbors, the Nubians, was very common in this period, but it was not until the reign of Sunrostern III, circa 1878 to 1860 before Christ, that Egypt made significant conquests in the south. Sunrostern III led 4 military expeditions against the Nubians and managed to bring back Lower Nubia in the north of the region under Egyptian control. to consolidate these conquests. The pharaoh ordered his subordinates to build a network of fortifications along the border to block further raids by the Nubians. Senusret III is also known to have led a military expedition into Canaan, but his main achievement was in bringing stability and prosperity to Egypt. During his reign, the cults of Osiris and Amun became increasingly popular, and Osiris would become a very important god of the afterlife, where he served as ruler and judge. Senusret III also finished the construction of Amun's temple near Karnak, begun by Mentuhotep II. This temple was the largest religious building ever constructed at its time. The reigns of Senusret III and the other kings of the 12th dynasty are considered to be a golden age for Egypt. Interestingly, Senusret III was a powerful pharaoh of ancient Egypt who ruled during the Middle Kingdom period. His reign was characterized by military conquests, impressive building projects, and an administrative system that helped to stabilize the kingdom. Now let's delve into his personal life, shall we? Senusret III was a man of many talents and interests. He was a skilled warrior, an accomplished builder, and a patron of the arts. In his free time he enjoyed hunting and fishing. He was also quite the charmer, if you can imagine. And it's said that he had many wives and mistresses who kept him entertained in the palace. So pharaoh of him. But despite his many talents and accomplishments, Senusret III was known for his stern demeanor. He was a firm ruler who demanded obedience from his subjects and was not afraid to use his power to maintain order. Despite this, he was also a man of deep religious devotion. He built many temples and commissioned works of art that celebrated the gods that showcased his own piety. All in all, Senusret III was a complex and fascinating figure, a man who combined strength and power with a deep love of his kingdom and its people. It's no wonder that he remains one of the most memorable pharaohs of ancient Egypt to this day. Now let's talk about his predecessor, Mentuhotep II, who was a pharaoh of ancient Egypt who lived over 4,000 years ago. But let's pretend that he lived in the modern times and see what his personal life might have been like. First off, let's talk about his hobbies. Mentuhotep II was a man of many interests, and if he were alive today, he'd probably have a packed social calendar. He loved to hunt, and you might find him at the local shooting range on weekends, trying to improve his aim. When he wasn't out in the wild, he enjoyed fishing and might be found relaxing by the lake with a rod in his hand. So very typical of pharaohs at the time, even though thousands of years didn't change much. As for his love life, Mentuhotep II was a charmer and is said to have had many wives and mistresses, just like the other pharaohs, I suppose. In modern times he'd probably be quite the catch and might be seen at the latest hotspots surrounded by admirers. But despite his many interests and pursuits, Mentuhotep II was a man of deep religious devotion. And if he were alive today, you might find him volunteering at his local temple and leading prayer groups. All in all, Mentuhotep II was a complex and multifaceted man, a true jack of all trades who would have been right at home in modern times. With his love of adventure, his devotion to the gods, and his charming personality, he'd be sure to leave a lasting impression on everyone he met. Well, he also left a great positive impact on the development of Egypt. So both pharaohs were very influential and were associated with a thriving Egyptian kingdom. What's interesting is that the modern-day descendants of ancient Egyptians are the people who currently live in Egypt. The population of Egypt is a mixture of various ethnic and cultural groups, including Egyptians of Arab, Coptic, Berber, Nubian, and other origins. So despite significant historical and cultural, as well as political changes over the thousands of years, the people of Egypt have maintained a strong sense of connection to their ancient heritage. Today, the descendants of the ancient Egyptians continue to celebrate and honor the customs and traditions, sometimes even beliefs of their forebears, and the country is rich in ancient historical sites and monuments, pyramids and artifacts. They are the testimony of the storied past. But it's important to note that the concept of a direct and unbroken lineage from the ancient Egyptians to modern-day Egyptians is a complex and nuanced one. Over the course of thousands of years, Egypt has been influenced by various cultures, including Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and others, and the population has mixed and intermarried with these groups. As a result, the modern-day population of Egypt is a diverse and culturally rich one, and it's a mixture of various ancestral backgrounds. I have conducted a poll on Twitter in the United States of asking the question, can you trace your lineage to any of the above groups? And actually garnered no replies, which means that there are very few people in America who associate themselves with any of the ancient civilizations, like Minoans, Canaanites, Egyptians, and Libyans. But it also can signify that not many people have viewed the poll, so that's a different issue. And to address this issue, I would highly recommend you guys to follow me on Twitter, and there we will conduct some interesting polls over the course of the series. And this will give you an opportunity to interact with others and see what their responses are. As well as let's continue the conversation about Age of Empires in both the gaming and historical context for entertainment purposes. I think that would be fun. It's twitter.com/Sunrostern. Yeah, see you there. Oh, speaking of Twitter, I think the closest thing that the ancient Egyptians had was probably papyrus scrolls. Yeah, you heard it right, papyrus scrolls were the tweets of their time. Just imagine scrolling through your papyrus feed and reading the latest gossip about Pharaoh's latest exploits, or the construction of the pyramids. As for social networks, well, ancient Egyptians had quite an extensive network of interconnected relationships. Imagine that. I know, you're like, what is that? Well, they had a hierarchy of government officials, the trusted sources, religious leaders, and merchants who communicated regularly through messenger pigeons and donkey riders. So I imagine that if you were more sophisticated, you would go with messenger pigeons. They also had a strong tradition of storytelling, with bards and storytellers passing down tales from generation to generation. It was like Facebook, but instead of liking a post, you would simply nod in agreement and shake your head in disbelief and clap your hands, something like that. Of course, it's not like the database was just the memories of the people who saw you doing that. So let's not forget about the public gatherings, where people would rather to drink beer. Well, imagine that. In ancient Egypt, they had excellent beer. Speaking of which, in modern American stores, there is a rumored ancient grains bread that is rumored to have been derived from some guy who discovered grain in ancient Egyptian pyramids and then decided to take out that ancient grain and pretty much make more of it, and thus hence came the ancient grains bread. I don't know if that story is true. If you do know that the story of Kamut is true, then let me know. I'm just curious to know. By the way, this video is not sponsored by the Kamut ancient grains bread, but if they would like to sponsor it, hey, the more the merrier. Anyways, they would just gather together, drink some beer, play Senet, and just catch up with each other. It was like a giant ancient Egyptian block party, if you know what I mean, where everyone was connected and everyone had something to share. In a funny way, you could say that the first Egyptians were masters of social media. long before the internet or Twitter even existed. Some of you might ask, how about trolling in ancient Egypt? Well, let me tell you a story. Trolling has been a part of human behavior for thousands of years, and it's likely that the ancient Egyptians had their own version of trolls too. However, as the primary forms of communication in ancient Egypt was face-to-face and through written messages, the methods of trolling would have been different from what we see today on the internet. In ancient Egypt, trolling could have taken form of spreading rumors or false information, making fun of someone's physical appearance or abilities. Don't make fun of my war-fighting abilities. Or making fun of someone's beliefs or opinions. For example, a troll might spread rumors about someone's supposed identity or laziness, and make fun of someone's hairstyle or fashion choices. Well, another form of trolling in ancient Egypt could have been through the use of sarcasm, irony, and wit in written messages or in conversation. For example, a person might write a poem or song that mocked someone's appearance, so ancient, or make a joke at someone's expense during a public gathering. It's important to note that while trolling has been part of human behavior for thousands of years, it can still have negative consequences and hurt someone's feelings. Just like today, it's important to be mindful of the impact of our words and actions on others, and engage in respectful and constructive communication. That had to put this disclaimer out there. So, how about sports? Well, the ancient Egyptians were known to have played a variety of games, including board games, ball games, and outdoor games, some of which were Senet. It's a board game that involved moving pieces along a grid of squares and often associated with religious and spiritual beliefs. Mehen, a board game that was played with lion-shaped pieces and a spiral board. Hounds and Jackals. That's an interesting one. It's a board game that involved moving pieces along a grid of squares that was similar to Senet, but with hounds and jackals instead of lions. Well, Game of 20 Squares. A board game that involved moving pieces along a series of squares. And you catch the pattern of what the Egyptian games were like. Anyways, there were some outdoor games too. The ancient Egyptians also played various outdoor games, such as archery and wrestling. It's difficult to say with certainty whether any modern games have roots in ancient Egyptian games. I'm sure there was some influence, down the generations and cultural exchanges. But the origins of many games are difficult to trace directly. Can you imagine? The ancient Egyptians even had bars and coffee shops. However, they are a bit different from what we think of as bars and coffee shops today. Bars in ancient Egypt were places where people could go to drink beer and wine, and they were often associated with social gatherings and festivals. The ancient Egyptians brewed various types of beer, including dark beer and light beer. And they also used beer as a form of currency and as a gift for the gods. Coffee shops, on the other hand, did not exist in the way that we know them today. However, the ancient Egyptians did enjoy a type of beverage made from roasted grains, which was similar to coffee. This beverage was known as kahwa and was often consumed as a form of socialization and for its caffeine-like effects. So, can you see the kind of similarity of kahwa with coffee? They could have been related, who knows? In conclusion, while the ancient Egyptians did not have bars and coffee shops in the exact form that we know them today, they did have similar social gathering places where they could drink, socialize, and enjoy beverages. So maybe we should reopen some of the Egyptian-style kahwaterias. I bet if I land a pretty nice sponsorship by the Commute Ancient Grains Company, I promise I will open the first kahwateria in America. And invite you all to join me in enjoying the roasted grains. Alright, enough of me gabbing. I think we're close to victory. We have really conquered the adversaries and established an outpost here. The island is under our control. The river has been explored entirely, but I wonder what's in the northwest corner. I don't know. I tried to explore it, but it's maybe there's some artifact or treasure hidden, but you cannot really land because it's surrounded by the cliffs that are impenetrable. Impenetrable? I think that's the right word. Yeah, this is the closest that I can get. Yeah. It's alright. I'm just curious. It could be something fun, but it could be just the forest or the jungle. Alright, we need to build 2 sentry towers. One is done. Here goes the second one. Let's send our troops and destroy the last standing building of the Nubians and see which will come first, the destruction of the building or construction of our tower. The hoplites. Aren't the hoplites an Egypt? Let's see. Oh, I think, yeah, I need to upgrade them. Aren't the hoplites a Greek thing? It's probably nice. We have one. Anyways, thanks for sticking around.
Risking their lives, your builders managed to construct the fort on the Nile River Island. It is only one of many forts, but it is certainly the most important as it controls access to the river itself. Your stalwart soldiers man the fortifications, and thus the Nubians have given up on their attempts to raid Egypt. You do not believe the Nubians will be stopped permanently, but your actions have brought peace for the time being.